Jimmy. Jimmy. Jim James, son.
Welcome back to another episode of the Jimmy Jim Jims channel. I am your host, Jimmy Jim Jims, and today, look at what we've got. Another Pontiac Vibe. This has got to be like, oh geez, I don't know, the fourth or fifth one I've purchased. Hey, look, there's my stupid neighbor walking out of his house. Anyway, you can tell that the front end has been a little bit squanchulated, aren't they all? Paint likes to come off of these babies, and you can definitely tell somebody has bonked something, but that's alright. That's perfectly fine. These are basically the best of 1.5 worlds, and what I mean by that is you get the best of Toyota, but the worst of GM. You get the bad plastics, you get the paint that's not that great, you get a number of other things that are just not that great from GM. So it is what it is. These are Toyotas at heart, and that's why I love them. You can see the hubcaps, all of them are missing because, again, GM, and the paint has peelified off over the course of the last, what is this, the 2004? Over the course of the last like 16 years or so. The body is actually pretty straight. There's no real dents on it or anything. It's not smashed up, which is nice. I believe it does have the license plates on the rear end still. Yes, it does, but we're going to be taking those off because they are expired, and we don't really care. I just put them on my wall. You can see, again, there's no body damage here, so that's nice. Again, hubcaps completely missing. Let's go for a interior opening, shall we? Now, the interior on this vehicle is BEA beautiful. Look at it. Ooh, so fancy, so clean, so shiny. This is a oh, look, the door even holds itself open. Wow, this is an unusual sight. Jimmy Jim Jim's getting a clean car. Usually they're filled with, well, filth. But look at this. Ooh, look at that. Oh, look at the headliner. This whole thing is beautiful. Just ignore that. We are going to go ahead and look at the cabin air filter and a few other things. Notice all the leaves down in there. Something tells me that cabin air filter is filthy. But the car itself runs and drives absolutely fine. Yes, it has a couple of lights on. It's got a check engine and an airbag. The airbag, well, we're going to go ahead and ignore that because there's not much you can do about that. But the check engine light,
signed off on booster shots of the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine.
It's got a real good stereo in this thing. This thing has a loud stereo. You can see it's got a check engine light and an airbag light, and that's just the door ajar light. But other than that, she seems to be doing fine. Let's see how many miles we got. 216,966, and she still has 100,000 more to go, more than likely. So the check engine light I've already monitored, and that is for an oxygen sensor after the catalytic converter, so we're going to have to do some checking into that because I know these cars suffer from the typical issue of the ECM or the PCM having some problems, and it's actually not the oxygen sensor. So we'll check into that. As you can see, the door panel, beautiful. My seat where my bum is currently sitting, beautiful. The floorboards where my feetsies are, beautiful. Everything in this car is beautiful. It smells like heaven in here. I really hope that this is how heaven smells because, damn, it's nice. I think it might be due to this dildo. Whatever this is, it looks like a Dalek dildo. It's kind of squishy. Ooh, I like that. It's like a stress ball. Do my hands smell good now? Oh yeah, that's nice. Look at that, so clean, so clean. The owner of this car was the friendliest guy too. I love it when I can find someone who's not only friendly but takes care of their car. Under the hood, mechanically, this thing looks fantastic. There is one other issue that's rather annoying. That isn't typical Toyota. I don't know what is, but let's go ahead and pretend that we didn't see that. Let's go up under the hood real quick. I won't close the door for fear of it locking. I know it doesn't have power locks, but you never know. Oh, it's one of these hoods you gotta use two hands for, so give me a second. Anyway, there's the hood open. That was a real bear to get open. It just did not want to pop there. It's probably kind of rusty and crusty down in this little latch, but that's okay. And for some reason, it only opens halfway. I'm not really sure what's up with that. We'll take a look at it, but look how clean the engine bay on this thing is. It's got a nice clean top. Doesn't appear to be leaking any oil. Actually has all original components, which is what you want to see on a Toyota. You don't want to see an aftermarket alternator on a Toyota. That kills them. I don't know why. Got a brand new battery in it. Look at that, 721. That's only a month old. It is going to need a throttle body cleaning because it idles a little bit high, and we'll probably also do a MAF sensor cleaning because nobody ever cleans the MAF sensors on these cars. Nobody. I don't know why, but it's such a simple little thing to do. But yeah, I mean, she runs absolutely fantastic. Not a hiccup to be found. Has plenty of power on the freeway. The only real problem that this vehicle has beyond the oxygen sensor causing the check engine light is that the rear suspension is toast. I mean, it is toast. It is mostly ghostly, okay? Look, I'm gonna show you what goes on here. Ready? See that? Absolutely toasted. So we need some rear shocks. I think there are shocks on this car. Not. This is a front-wheel drive, I believe. Let's go ahead and stick our little heads up underneath and verify. Yeah, this is a front-wheel drive vehicle, so that's good. It means it's the base model. You can tell it's the base model because it's got these little cranky crank windows. But let's go ahead and give it a start up, like I said, and show you that it runs real good. Look at that, starts right up. Comes to a nice idle. Temperature's nice and steady. Can't all cars be like this? The answer is no. Because then they'd put domestic vehicles out of business. The only reason this vehicle even exists is due to like number of mergers and a number of deals and acquisitions through the now defunct Numi factory, I believe. But you can hear it sounds pretty good. It's got a little bit of a tickety tick, but you know, you get what you get for the age of the vehicle. You can tell that's nice and healthy. Nice and healthy. So, I guess the next thing we'll move on to is, like I was saying, this cabin air filter, and we got a few wires dangling down here that I'm not really sure where they go to, so let's get to fixing this. And before we go and fix anything further off camera, it took me about 5 minutes to prop this fucking hood open. So I'm going to use some Zoom spout oiler. I don't know if you can see that. I can't really focus with one hand, but Zoom spout oiler is good for bearings and good for just about anything that has metal on metal contact. So what I like to do is just squeeze a little bit of that in there on any surface that rotates, that moves, any of that thing like that. And this stuff is good stuff. Give it a little bit of time to sit and it'll just about anti-seize anything. So now let's move on to the interior. So here we are at the cabin air filter. You can see lots of little leavies in there, little baby leaves inside of the glove box. In fact, I couldn't even get this glove box open when I first got the car because this was jammed, but I've since gotten it unjammed, luckily. So let's go ahead and look at this cabin air filter. You can actually see these are the wires I was talking about. I think these are related to the airbag, so we're gonna have to look into this. It does have a rebuilt title, so we're gonna find surprises nonetheless. But let's go ahead and pull this out. Boy, that's jammed in there. Uh-oh. Wow, that doesn't want to come out. Look at the filth in there. You can just see that. Alright, give me a second. Took 2 hands to free this little bastard, but here we go. Ew. How nice. Anyway, oh wow, look down in there. We're going to have to get a vacuum cleaner down in there, because this is gross. Come on, guys. Clean out your cabin air filters when you get the chance. This is gross. Nobody wants that blowing in your face. You know how nasty that probably smells? It's probably why they put this nice little clean smelling thing in here. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get a new cabin air filter. Next, let's go ahead and check the codes. So now we've got the OBD2 scanner hooked up, and there you go. P0037 HO2S heater control circuit low, bank 1 sensor 2. That's the one after the catalytic converter. And the second code is the exact same thing. I don't know why the C reader does this. It just does. It always doubles the codes, makes you scared because you think you got 2 codes and you only got 1. Now when I went ahead and plugged this thing down in there, I didn't notice everyone's favorite wiring, spaghetti wiring. Ho ho! I should be a game show host. I'm like Wayne Brady, except I don't have to choke a bitch, you know what I mean?
Is Wayne Brady gonna have to choke a bitch?
There's a wire there that's just sort of disconnected. We don't know what that goes. We don't know what any of this goes to. More than likely, based on this light here, it's probably an aftermarket anti-theft system. So we will pull all of those wires out and put them proper again. I should say again. But now that we know what the code is for, I'm going to go ahead inside and we'll order an oxygen sensor along with 2 rear shocks and a couple of other things here and there. And we'll also go get a new cabin air filter because look what it spit out. Gross. So there you can see the total cost for the 2 rear shocks and an oxygen sensor, $95.77. That's not too bad. It's going to take a little bit of time to get here though, because you know, that's like almost a week from now, and I will be in Arizona in a week, so we're going to have to wait on those parts. And while we're waiting, there's a couple other things that we can go ahead and do. So let's hop over to the car. Well, there's the MAF sensor removed. I don't know if you can see that, but it is filthy. It should look like a little red jewel, and instead it looks like a little black bean. So let's go ahead and clean that off with some of the appropriate mass airflow sensor cleaner. See, that's how it should look. Nice and shiny. So let's go throw this back in. So there's the MAP sensor back in place. Now we have the throttle body, butterfly valve exposed. There's the actual caterpillar, if that's what you want to call it. It's actually an air snorkel, but I like calling it a caterpillar. Anywho, if you go ahead and look down in there, I know it's kind of hard. I guess I can zoom you guys in. You can see that it's kind of dirty, and then you open the valve. Very dirty. Look how nasty that is. So I'm going to hold this open with a screwdriver, and I'm going to go down in there with some brake cleaner and just gently clean it off. You don't want to be real harsh with those. You got to be real gentle. So give me a second. Well, there you go. The throttle body has been cleaned a lot better than it was. Now there's no more squish when you turn the actual valve part. It feels nice and smooth, which I'm sure will improve the acceleration and idle greatly. I also discovered that this thing uses an old school IAC, which has coolant lines running through it, unlike today's all-electric IACs, which I much prefer to these ancient ones. But they're pretty reliable and robust, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that untouched. It didn't seem to be causing any problems. So that's all for now. I think I'm going to go ahead and button this back up. Now that the engine bay is all put back together and it's running real nice, I've decided to remove this little siren, because it doesn't go to anything. Remember that jumble of wires that I found sticking under the dashboard? Well, there's a red and a black wire, and if you look real carefully by lifting this up, you can see that there's a red and black wire going to this, and it's unplugged. Those wires are completely cut, so this no longer does anything. So let's take it out. Poor siren, it was just trying to do its job, and then I come along and trashify it. But unfortunately, it wasn't doing anything anymore, so I pulled it clean out. Now the very next thing I have to do is go back under the dashboard and check out that jumble of wiring. So there it is, the big fat jumble of wiring. Every car I get seems to have this problem. Remember the Nissan Altima I got? And there were so many other cars that I've got that have this. I hate it when people do this. I'm just gonna go ahead, and you can tell that most of this is aftermarket. Look at this relay here. Who knows what the hell this is controlling? So I'm gonna go up in here and see what we can do to reconnect all the factory wiring. This is most definitely for an old school aftermarket anti-theft alarm, but it's not anti-thefting anything anymore. It's just been completely cut and jibbled and jambled. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove all of this. So this is too funny. You guys have to take a look at this. I started pulling on some of the wires to determine where they go, and check this out. See this wire right here? I don't know why it does that, but I'm assuming this little wire runs to this light, and it's just sort of looped around the connector, looped around the little metal prong here, and as soon as you yank on it, just like a little hidden compartment. Too funny some of the shit that people will do to their cars without really paying attention. Yeah, you can see there's the wire, and then there's another Vumber, blah 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 blah. That's all, folks.
As a pig, I am very dirty and should not be touched by humans.
Oh look, there's another wire that goes to absolutely nothing. So yeah, I guess that's too funny, man. So there they are. The spaghetti tangle of wires has been removed yet again from yet another car, and they didn't really seem to do anything at all. I actually had the car running when I cut the wires to make sure I didn't cut any important feed wires or electrical power wires, and I've come to the conclusion that these were already pre-unplugged before I even got here, so somebody made my job much easier, and all I had to do was just disconnect everything. As you can see, there's no more wires dangling down. I've also got the glove box reattached on this side and a new cabin air filter thrown in there. Still have to vacuum the floor up a little bit. Something I did notice that was weird, there was those couple of wires that had been cut for some reason, dangling where the airbag is. So I reconnected them to the connector that was in there, and after a few minutes or so, the airbag light actually went off. So I don't know if that's permanent. I hope it's permanent. But when I'm working further on the car, I'll actually show you that the airbag light is no longer illuminated. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and throw all this away, and I've got a few more things to do, so join me in a few seconds. So now we've moved on to the downstream O2 sensor, which is causing the one and only code. Now 9 times out of 10, I will do my research beforehand, and I will actually check out the O2 sensor to verify that it is dead. But in this case, I kind of jumped the gun and bought the O2 sensor, and I definitely should have done my research first. So I stuck my little head up underneath, and you can see there, that is an unplugged plug. So there's like a little rubber grommet that goes into the floorboards, and it goes way up in there. And as soon as I just barely yanked on it, guess what fell out? That's right, a plug that should be plugged in that is not. Now on these vehicles, it's in the passenger footwell, the actual plug. So I pulled back the carpet, and what do you know? An unplugged O2 sensor connector. So I didn't even need to order a new O2 sensor, it just needed to be frickin' plugged back in. So should have done my research first, but that's okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and fish this wire back up through the floorboards here and plug it back in, and then we will clear the car's computer and see if it stays off for a few days as I drive it around. Now I already have the new O2 sensor on the way, so there's a good chance I'm just gonna throw it in because I already ordered it, and there's no harm in putting a new O2 sensor in. It's probably, if anything, it's good for the car. So let me go ahead and plug everything back in, and then we will get to checking that car's computer. So there it is, plugged back in. I even put the rubber bungle back in its little spot, little spungle. So now it's time to go clear those codes and see what pops back up. That's, you're listening to NPR. I'm your host, Jimmy Jim Jims, and I'm gonna talk real quiet. I'm just kidding. Notice we have 2 lights missing. Ooh, and the idle has come down to a more appropriate area. It's still not as appropriate as it needs to be. I think I'm actually gonna have to reset the computer by taking the battery terminals off and letting it sit for about half an hour, and then reconnecting it, because that's how you reset the idle on these Toyotas. They sort of have a nasty habit of learning their idle and staying that way. Even after you take the battery off, and for a couple of seconds it'll still remember it because of the car's internal memory. But look at that. No more lights on besides the door ajar, so let's go ahead and... Oh, fancy. Let's see if our fancy music is still there. Yeah. So now that we've finished the lights and all that stuff, let's move on to the rear shocks. Oh yeah. Alright, we've got her in reverse. We're about to back out now. I'm just waiting for this asshole behind me to hurry up. Oh boy. She's got some power now. Wow, that is a night and day difference from when I first bought it. Wow, oh, and the brakes are fantastic. Let's go ahead and look both ways so I don't run somebody over. This road should be familiar to you. In basically all of my videos, I use this as a personal test track. So, sorry, City of El Paso. Man, she's running good. Dang. Very happy about this. Those rear shocks, man, they are bouncy. So I gotta go ahead and replace those, but we're still waiting on them. Thank you, Rock Auto. You guys' shipping time is just abysmal. But, yeah, she's running fantastic. So, I'll get you guys at home. Now that we've taken it for a small little drive, that's where you want to see the idle. Right around 800, between 750 and 800 RPMs. That's the sweet spot for a Toyota. But, man, she's running good. Couldn't be any happier, actually. Light has not re-illuminated. Obviously not, it's only been a mile, but I'll continue to drive it over the course of the next week and we will monitor that light. But so far, I am a happy Jimmy. So let's go ahead and put her in park. And now let's move on to the rear shocks. So now we've gotten to the final portion, which is taking the rear shock absorbers out. Unfortunately, in this vehicle, to take the rear shock absorbers out, basically all the plastic fantastic that's inside of it has to come out. So I had to take all these plastic coverings off, 6 to 8 giant bolts. And those 2 bolts right there actually represent the rear half of the shock absorbers, which for some reason have a coil spring mount. I was expecting just a shock absorber, but instead I received this weird looking thing. So I've never seen that before on one of these, but you know, you live and you learn. Isn't that right, Smokey Robinson? Want to be on the camera? Yeah, you're a ham. You're a ham for the camera, aren't you? Oh, yes you are, buddy. Yes you are. Hey, what you doing? Now this, folks, is the sweetest creature that ever lived. This is one of God's own creatures right here. Oh, I love you, Smokey. Anyway, I gotta get back to making videos or people get angry. So, that's what we're doing. We gotta go ahead and jack this up, take the wheel off, unbolt the lower half of the shock absorber, unbolt the upper half, and then go get a spring compressor from the garage and compress the spring. So, I'll catch you in a second. Well, there's the new strut installed on this side. It was completely blown. I mean, thoroughly blown. I don't know if you can see it over here, but There it is, just completely blown. You can see that I've also got this side jacked up now, and we're going to go ahead and take this off so I can take the old strut off. It's quite annoying to get those struts off. I actually had to go buy a spring compressor tool from O'Reilly's, and by buy I mean rent and not return. But it was brand new, so I needed one of these. Unfortunately, I did snap off a frickin' lug nut while I was doing this, go figure. But that's fine with me. I'm going to go ahead and order a lug nut and a stud and bash it out, because this is a drum brake in the rear, which is much easier to replace a stud on than a disc brake like the front. So let's hop over to this side and start changing the struts. You gotta love these DeWalt impacts. Look at that, took her right off. There's the lower portion of the strut, and I'm going to use the electric DeWalt impact. It's kind of hard to get, but you just clip. And again, there it is. That's all it took. There's the bolt. Super easy. So now that we've taken that lower bolt off, you come over here to the upper two bolts and you remove them. It's kind of hard to see again because of the shadows. But here's one of them right there. And there's another one back here. And there's the second bolt. Now the last bolt that has to be removed before we can take this strut assembly out is right here. I think that's a 14mm, and you just stick it up on there and unbolt it, and then wiggle the whole assembly loose. There is the removed complete strut assembly, so now what we got to do is take these coil spring compressors, McPherson coil spring compressors, attach one to either side of the coil, and use the impact to drive them down so we can pop the mount off and slide the old strut out. So let's get to it. But there are the McPherson coil spring compressors on the coil spring, and now I will show you how this works. You simply attach this thing over the top of it, and then normally you would compress it all the way down at an equal speed on each side, because you don't want to compress one side more than the other. So that's what I'm going to do off camera. And that's how far that they compress down. Now we're going to take the nut off the top of the mount, and hopefully the spring does not shoot off and rocket into the atmosphere. It probably won't, due to this compression force that we've put on it. So now we take this, put it over the nut, and there you go. If you hadn't have done that, this spring would have shot straight off into who knows where and probably killed me and many other things. So it's very important to get these McPherson coil spring compressors unless you want to hurt yourself. And there it is, disassembled into its most molecular components. The actual strut itself. This is the top hat with the mount. This is the bellow with the hockey puck on top of it. And this is the actual coil spring with the rubber mounting bracket. So all of this comes off so we can slide the new strut up inside of there. And you want to do this while it's still compressed. And there is the new strut added into all the old assemblies. And all I got to do now is loosen these. I've already put the new nut on top, so I have to loosen these two assemblies slowly so the spring can decompress. And I also have to adjust the top hat about 90 degrees or so it will actually line up flush with this. So there is the new strut all installed. You can see it's right down in there, flush like it should be. It's flush there like it should be. And the bolts on top are mounted in properly. So that's the two back struts completed. I just got to put this tire back on and we can complete the rear end. So those are the two rear struts completed. I'm still waiting for the lug nut stud kit to come in the mail so I can fix the rear lug nut stud. I'm also waiting for the hubcaps I purchased to come through the mail, but that could take forever. Hey, Smokey. We got Smokey here, our best little buddy. And also I put the interior back together. You can see that it looks pretty good now. Nice and clean in the back. Almost immaculate, to be honest. And the front needs a vacuuming still, but the interior is complete. So like I said, I'm just waiting for a few little things, hubcaps here and there, the lug nut studs, and maybe a wash and a wax. I doubt a wax because there is nothing left to wax. I also got to take this license plate off and go throw it on the wall, so we're almost close to finishing. So you're talking to him. More cars? Well, I don't see why not. Yeah, go ahead. Send them over. All right. All right. Thank you. Bye. Well, what are you guys still doing here? Come on, the episode's over. Get the hell out of my garage. I got work to do.